So, in this video, let's talk about how we can improve our meditation session to be more effective, right? So, for example, let's say I'm doing a 25-minute meditation session where my focus is to observe the breath, right? Practicing anapana or samatha. And generally, how we do it is we just sit and we start focusing on the, let's say, on tip of the nose, observing the breath, right? And generally when we practice, right, our goal is very clear, right? We're supposed to observe the breath, but we generally end up just sitting through the meditation, sort of daydreaming, and not really, effectively practice for those 25 minutes, right? So instead of just directly coming and start doing your meditation practice, it really helps if we prepare for the meditation first, right? So at least in my case, now for the first 5 minutes I make sure that I prepare for the meditation. Even let's say if I'm doing for 25 minutes or 40 minutes, right? The first 5 minutes I end up preparing for the meditation. And then the rest of the meditation session I notice is generally much more effective, right? So, how do we prepare for the meditation, right? Most of these steps are coming from the book The Mind Illuminated, but also like similar teachers are giving the similar advice, right? So, the first thing when I start the meditation, right, is to set the intention. Why am I practicing meditation? And this intention keeps changing, right? So initially when I was practicing meditation, it was all about basically, having some sense of groundedness so I can go through the day with some sense of, ease instead of just reacting to everything, and just a little bit peace in the mind, right? Later it became more about gaining as much clarity as possible, right? And then at some point it was all about, understanding the self, going as deep inside myself as possible and all that. And at this point, my intention is to cultivate enough mindfulness so that throughout the day, when I'm going through different experiences, and then there's a different movement that is happening inside me, right? Different craving, aversion, all these things are coming. I could stay present or mindful about all these things so that I can sort of learn to handle them instead of reacting based on that and purify, right? So that is the intention for me right now, right? That when I practice meditation, my intention is so that I could stay present throughout the day with different sense of different opportunity that comes in the you know way of different emotions and the way of different uh, thoughts throughout the day, that I can learn to kind of practice with them to become more and more present, right? To practice with them to become more and more comfortable with different things inside myself, right? So that is my intention for these days, right? So that is the first step. Then for the meditation practice, set a goal that what is the meditation practice is about, what am I trying to do in this particular meditation session, right? And this doesn't want, you don't want to do it like, very hard expectation and you just like very strongly holding it, but just getting clear in your head, right? What is the goal for this meditation session, right? So for me, let's say I'm practicing anapana and I'm noticing that I could stay stable on the breath, but my focus is not very sharp, right? So for me, the goal for this meditation session is to cultivate that sharpness, right? One way for me to cultivate that sharpness is to basically focus on the certain aspect of the breath, let's say temperature, right? So for this meditation session, my focus is to observe the different temperature when I'm sort of inhaling and exhaling, and try to be as sharply aware of that as possible, right? I mean, I'm just giving an example, but what is the goal for this meditation session, right? Now, setting these intentions, setting these goals, and other steps, right? The way it affects your meditation practice is that when I'm focusing on my breath, the mind is going to produce certain distractions, right? It's like unconscious process that is producing these distractions, right? I don't even know what is the next thought that is going to pop up in my head, right? But because I'm setting these intentions, setting these goals, setting all these different aspects of the meditation practice, what happens is I am somehow communicating with that somewhat unconscious process that is generating these distractions, right? The more clear and more clear intent I have, the more I'm influencing this unconscious process, right? So when I'm actually focusing on the breath, there is relatively less distractions, right? So that's how this is kind of useful uh, to prepare for the meditation session, right? So I have set my intention, I have set my goal. The third thing I do is to be aware of the obstacle that I'm likely going to face in the meditation, right? It depends on, like, throughout my day, if there's certain kind of, or maybe right now I'm going through something more intense in my work or relationship and all these things, right? Having a general sense of the primary obstacle that I'm going to face in the meditation kind of diffuses it, right? I mean, it's not like I'm going to, you know, release my responsibility and all that, but having a sense of those obstacles that are likely going to arise in the meditation and having this intention that I'm not going to engage in them, at least in the meditation session. Again, the same logic, it influences the subconscious process that is likely going to generate this kind of obstacles, this kind of thoughts and emotions, right? So set your intention, be clear about the goal, but hold it lightly. Make sure that you're aware about the obstacle that you are likely going to face in the meditation. And then just set another intention of practice diligently for this meditation session, right? So this sort of setting the intention makes you more likely to engage in the meditation session more efficiently, right? Compared to if I just directly try to focus on the breath. If I directly try to focus on the breath, again, the distraction that the mind is going to generate is going to be uh, quite powerful and going to be quite a lot compared to if you set up all the intentions properly, right? And then finally, you check your posture and make sure that at least our posture is as good as we can actually make it, right? The more uptight the upright the back is, the better the meditation generally end up happening, right? So I also like, since the meditation is one of those things where you're going to spend quite a lot of time over the period of your time, period of your meditation practice throughout your lifetime, right? It's probably a good idea to make sure that you have like a proper setup, right? There's a lot of different cushions and there's a lot of yoga blocks and meditation straps to keep your back upright. There's also these Japanese tables where you cannot sit the cross leg, then you can just you sit in the Vajrasana sort of position, right? So maybe, or even you can get creative, right? If you don't want to invest money on these sort of things, maybe use a books or something. Just try to set up your space which is inviting and which is comfortable for meditation, right? That also really helps, right? So this is basically a preparation. You set up your intention, your goal, your obstacle, your intent to practice diligently, and then your posture is as good as you can make it, right? It might sound like this is a lot of, I mean, it takes a lot of time to do it, but and initially it does take a lot of time to kind of get used to it. But eventually, for me, at this point, it takes maybe like 2 minutes or something like this, right? To just quickly go through all these different steps. But at the same time, it helps you to kind of, get into a meditation practice well prepared, right? So once these steps are done, then in my case, the next thing I do is I start counting the breath till 10, right? Once. So once I reach the 10, then I let go of it and start doing my meditation, whatever the meditation practice I'm doing that day, right? This counting the breath is quite interesting, right? Because I started it, well, not recently, but after quite a time, right? And I do find it very useful. So, what it does for me, at least, when I'm counting the breath, it does give me a sense of like what is the state of the mind I'm working with today, right? If I can easily count for 10 breath, I know that, my mind is in a pretty good state, it's calm, it's focused, and then likely the meditation session is going to be a lot more efficient or effective, right? If the mind is too much turbulent and I can't really focus on the if I can't really count the breath, then I know, like, okay, it's very likely that I'm going to face a lot of obstacle or a lot of distraction today, right? And once I count to the 10 breath, generally minds at this point, once I've done all the intention setting and then I count to 10 breath, at this point the mind is well settled on the meditation, you know, uh, practice, well settled for meditation practice, right? And then I continue doing meditation for next 20 minutes or 40 minutes or something around like those lines, right? So this is what I do before I start the meditation. Generally, it takes around 5 minutes for me to complete everything, and but after that, definitely the quality of meditation is generally better compared to if I don't do this and try to directly jump into the meditation, right? Also, you will notice in several books, people generally recommend that instead of directly focusing on the on your meditation object, again, let's say for example the breath, but it could also be vipassana, right? But instead of directly focusing on the breath, it's probably a good idea to start with, listening to the external sound. I mean, start from the broader and slowly go into more narrower focus, right? So start with listening to the different sounds that you can listen, then start focusing on the body, then start focusing on the entire breath, and then ultimately come to the meditation object, right? This somehow doesn't really work for me, so I generally don't practice it, but maybe for some people it could be very useful also, right, to integrate this into your meditation practice. Yeah, so that's how at least I do it, and that's how I find it. Having a preparatory practice in the beginning of meditation does improve the overall quality of the rest of the meditation, actually.